Hello, welcome everyone. Good afternoon from Singapore. Welcome, welcome. Welcome everyone. This is our Open Day Infant School webinar at Uwcsea. Good afternoon. I will just give everyone a chance to join the webinar, so please bear with us. Hello and welcome. Hello again, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us for our Infant School Open Day webinar. My name is Malika Ramdas, and I'm Director of Admissions at the college. And we will get underway very soon, but we're going to give everyone a chance, a few more attendees, a chance to join this webinar. So in the meantime, I invite you to watch this short video, which gives you a sense of our exciting community and learning program. Okay, welcome everyone. Again, my name is Malika Ramdas. I'm Director of Admissions at Uwcsea in Singapore. We welcome you to today's webinar, which focuses on our infant school learning program and student experience. You will hear from our principals of our primary school on both our campuses, Dover and East Campus. And we will have a presentation of about 30 minutes, followed by a question and answer session with the vice principals who are responsible for our infant schools on both campuses, as well as myself from admissions. And so that is the structure of our program this afternoon. In addition to our webinar today, we also have exciting on-campus open days coming up very soon. And hopefully you've already signed up for those, but if you haven't, you are welcome to still register via our website. And those events are taking place at East Campus on September 10th and at the Dover campus on September 17th and 19th. So we invite you to register, and hopefully we'll see you on campus very soon. So just a few logistics from me today. You can submit any questions you have about the learning program in the infant school and about student experience or any aspect of the infant school that interests you. You are invited to submit your questions through the Q&A button that you will find at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So feel free to do that at any time. And some of your questions will be answered live at the end of the session today in the Q&A part of it. And some of those questions will be answered by my colleagues who are behind the scenes responding to some of your questions. I also want to mention that if you would like to listen to today's presentation in a language other than English, you can activate the Show Captions button, which is at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and you can select the language of your choice. So I'll just give you a moment to identify that button if that's something you would like to do. Okay, so a final message from me. Just to note that today's presentation does not include a formal presentation about the admissions process, because we already covered that in our opening webinar, which was held yesterday, called Admissions Explained. And that recording will be available on our website very soon. And it will also be included in the follow-up message that we will send all of you who registered and attended today's webinar. Finally, today's webinar is being recorded, and we will also place a recording of this session on our website in a day or two. Okay, so with that, it's my great pleasure to introduce you to our two primary school principals, Pauline Markey at our East Campus and Brian O'Meloin at our Dover campus. Over to you, Pauline.
Thank you, Malika. And again, to echo Malika's warm welcome, and we're delighted you've joined us today. So my name's Pauline Markey. I'm the primary school principal at our East Campus, and I'm just going into my 8th year here in Singapore. I've been teaching for well over 30 years, and over 25 of those in international settings. I'm here with my family. My husband teaches in the high school, and my daughter graduated a few years back and has just started her first job after graduating from university in law. And my son is a teacher in Belgium. So I've taught in Kuwait, Qatar, Belgium, and now Singapore. And I can say that UWC is the best school in the world, if I'm allowed to say that online. Not only is it the best school, we do have the best job. We have the most amazing community, and we really hope to see you in person. And Malika just shared those dates. We hope to see you on the campus where you will really get a feel for our school, but also meet some of our students. Now I will hand over to my counterpart on our Dover campus, Brian.
Okay, hi everyone. So my name is Brian O'Meloin, which is a Gaelic name. So the children here call me Mr. O. Nice and easy. So I have 3 children, all of whom have come through all the way from K1, and my youngest now is in grade 12. So I guess I have 42 years of experience as a parent in this school when you add it all up. We have my 3 children times 3 years and infants, 9 teachers. I don't think any of my kids had the same teachers. So they all had a fantastic time in the infant school and beyond. As Pauline and I talk today, we always have one eye on the rest of the school career, because we know, depending on whether you're looking at our school for K1, K2 or grade 1, and I know you're looking at other schools as well, but one way or the other, you're might be choosing a school for 14 years or 13 years or 12 years. So we do always have one eye on where the kids are going. As we do when we're planning, we always have one eye on where the learning is headed for them. So if you could show the next slide, please, Malika. Obviously, it's a large school, and so we have a whole leadership team. These 2 ladies are Tracy Yorkman, who is the vice principal of infant school in East Campus. And then Vicky Wright works here with me in the Dover campus. So you'll be hearing from Tracy and Vicky in about 30 minutes from now during the Q&A. And that you'll get far more intelligent answers from them than you would from Pauline and me. But they're waiting in the wings, and they will see you later. Okay, thank you. Next slide, please, Malika.
I was going to jump in there and said, speak for yourself, Brian. Anyway, I just want to draw your attention to the fact that you're considering us, and we're delighted you're considering UWC for your children. But actually, you wouldn't be just joining UWC in Singapore. You'd be joining the UWC movement. And you can see from the map there are 18 colleges all around the world. Only 5 of the schools actually have K to grade 12. So you'd be very fortunate to be joining one of those very special schools. Next slide. So one thing that all 18 colleges share is this mission, and you can see the mission there, and it's quite a lofty aim to make education a force to unite people, nations and culture for peace, peace and a sustainable future. And we attempt to keep that at the heart of everything we do, every decision we make, and we try to live and breathe it. And that's what we're trying to encourage in all our students, that they will be able to live and breathe and enact and on that mission as well. And we hope today during our presentation to give you a little glimpse into what that actually looks like on a day-to-day basis. Next slide, please. So you can see that we are a K-12 school. We have 2 campuses in Singapore, either side of the island. and we're very large. There's a large number of students at both campuses. However, for our students, it doesn't feel like that, as the school is grouped in different sections. So you can see here on both campuses, there's a primary school, a middle school and a high school. And the primary school is made up of two sections as well, an infant school, which is today's programme, and a junior school. And the infant school is K1, K2 and grade 1. And so for the children in the infant school, they really feel that sense of belonging, first of all, to their grade and then to the infant school. But it doesn't seem like that huge school to them. They're really connected in their own grade with their own play areas and dedicated specialist areas as well for music, PE, etc. So that sense of belonging is something that we really, really hone in on for our children. However, there is a huge, huge benefit for being in a K-12 school. And we see that in so many different ways in our school. So our older students are great role models for our youngest students and develop great relationships and engage in different activities at different times of the year. We also have different schemes. So we have buddy schemes. So we have a class buddy. So a grade 12 class might be buddied with a K2 class. And they will come together on a weekly or fortnightly basis and engage in different activities. And it always brings a smile to my face to see some of these really big grade 10, 11, 12 students on the floor playing with the train set with our youngest children, and not really sure who's getting most pleasure out of that. We also have a fantastic scheme called Adopt a Boarder. And the Adopt a Boarder scheme is we have boarding houses on both campuses. And each class in the primary school will adopt a boarder. So they'll have that special border buddy, and they're one of our National Scholar students. And they will come to the class, they'll teach the class about where they're from and their home country, and the class will invite them to lots of special occasions. And those relationships last for a long, long time. They'll invite them to birthday celebrations, they'll invite them to when they're doing their productions or their arts festivals or any assemblies. But they'll also look out for them when they're in grade 12 and their exams are coming up or mock exams. The class will, together with the parents, make a revision basket, and they'll make signs and that for when they're graduating on the grand walk. So it's a really, really special relationship. And I recently interviewed a parent whose a child started in K2, and the border buddy from K2, the child's now in grade 7, they've kept in contact for all those years. And the mum actually went and visited the previous border buddy in New York City, where the person is now very successful in their line of work. And that previous border buddy took the mum out, showed them all around New York, and really wanted to pay back that special relationship they'd had. So these are really deep and meaningful relationships that happen during the time in school. Next slide, please. So here you will see, what does it really look like then on a day-to-day basis? And we have a video from both campuses. Over to you. Over to you, Brian.
Sorry, I'm having video trouble. Am I good now? So, okay, so that's a very fast-paced video of a day in the life of an infant school child. I just wanted to talk a little bit about what does the actual structure of the day look like. So the formal day begins at 8 a.m., but the children are arriving and the teachers and teaching assistants are in class from 7:30 a.m. So that's a kind of an informal time. But they're there and a lot of the kids are at school already at 7:30. During the day then, oh, sorry, and then let me go to the end, and we end at 2 o'clock. Again, formal lessons. There are activities that sometimes go on until 3 o'clock if they choose to do them. During the day, the children spend the vast majority of their week with their one classroom teacher, doing that kind of core curriculum, the kinds of things you would expect in terms of subjects. Reading, writing, maths, science, social studies, all those things are done by one classroom teacher, like in most schools. And then they have specialist teachers for music, physical education, PE, sport, that's called different things in different schools. And which one did I leave out? Languages. So they go to those, sometimes they go to a specialist classroom and sometimes the specialist comes to them into their classroom. It's mostly like you would imagine in most schools, it is the classroom teacher that does most things with them, and that's who they identify with, and their teaching assistants. So the next slide, please. Okay, so this is our the best representation we could find of how we define our program here, and we opted for a circle because what we mean here and you see that it says holistic education at the top of that. You'll sometimes hear that called educating the whole child, those kinds of things, but whatever you want to call it, we really mean it here. So you'll see that going around that learning program is academics, activities, service, and then outdoor education, personal, social education. We see those things as being equal and interwoven into each other. They don't, however, get equal time. Academics by a country mile gets the most time because it needs the most time. It gets the most attention because it needs the most attention. It gets the most budget, for example. So a lot of the other four, maybe not activities, three, a service, personal, social education, outdoor education, are often interwoven in and amongst the academic subjects that you might expect a child to be learning at school. So it is very responsive, it's values-based, and we are very much looking at developing citizens. What we don't believe as a school is that our children are only citizens of the future. We also see them as citizens of the present. But like I said at the beginning, we always do have one eye on where they're heading. So it's very important to know where their learning is heading and where the kinds of experiences that they're going to have, in which their values will be tested and all those kinds of things. But we see a 4-year-old needs to be a 4-year-old, and that old idea that a 7-year-old is not half of a 14-year-old. They have value and worth as citizens as they are now. So that's our holistic learning program. And you see, we refer back to this wheel all the time. It's very important to us. Equal, but not equal time, not equal money, not equal attention. Okay, next slide, please. So then we talk about how we're using the word discipline there to mean what you might call subjects, or it's just paradigms of thought, thinking like a mathematician, thinking like a scientist. How does an author think? Those kinds of things. So disciplines. And especially for young children, there aren't any boundaries between and among subjects in that same way. And that remains true pretty much through primary school. You start to see actual boundaried subjects, timetable subjects in middle school and beyond. What you will see in an infant school classroom is engagements, experiences, stations in which all of these different subjects are being dealt with and engaged with at the same time. So when you go home, when the kids go home and the parents say, "Did you do mathematics today?" the kids will say, "No, we never do mathematics. We never do any reading at school. We never do it." But of course they are. They just think they're playing. They think they're just having a good time with their friends. And we want them to be happy. And one of the major We have the same written curriculum, obviously, on the two campuses, and a major feeling on both campuses, and a belief that happy children learn, and the happier they are, the more they learn. So the next question, or next slide, please. I'll just show you this question that a lot of international schools grapple with this question. So when you have in a school 80 nationalities, if you could show that next slide, then the question is, how do you decide whose history you teach? So again, looking forward into middle school and high school, how do we grapple with that question? You could swap in the word geography instead of whose geography do you focus on, whose history do you focus on? And different schools deal with this in different ways. We have very good schools in Singapore, and I know you're looking at lots of schools. If, for example, if you're absolutely sure that you're only coming to Singapore for 2 years, a lot of people think they're doing that and end up not doing that. But if you know, then it is a consideration that maybe you would prefer to stay in that British system or the American system. For us, we choose the best kind of overarching big ideas that are globally applicable, common to all of humanity. So we'll pick something like migration as a topic in geography, even with very young children, and we're looking at what are the pushes and the pulls, what are those things that cause people to migrate, whether it's forced migration or voluntary, all those kinds of things. So we'll pick an overarching concept. We'll pick, in history, we might pick a topic like conflict later on in your children's education here. And then we're using different content that illustrates those concepts. So again, we do that with every subject. I've just put history in there, but we're looking at that in that kind of way all the time. So we have what we call it's basically concept-based teaching and learning. And there's a video that I think we have next, Malika, that explains that very well.
What is concept-based learning? Concept-based learning is centered around big ideas. Ideas so universal that they transfer across place, time, and situation. Content is important, so students must acquire knowledge and skills within each discipline. But the ability to make sense of their knowledge and skills in the world around them is just as important. This doesn't happen by accident. Students are given a variety of experiences so that they develop conceptual understandings, significant ideas that transfer to new contexts. This ensures that they thrive in a complex and unknown future. The UwC SEA concept-based curriculum leads to the IB diploma in grades 11 and 12 and is developed from our mission. Our educational goal is that students embrace challenge and take responsibility for shaping a better world. To do this, they must develop higher order thinking skills and apply their learning to diverse situations. Because our community is so international and diverse, our students bring a wide range of experiences, knowledge, and skills with them when they join us. A concept-based curriculum allows them to connect their prior learning to our experiences at school, as well as develop deep understanding. How do we develop conceptual understanding in our students? Concept-based learning goes hand in hand with learners having a diverse and broad range of experiences. This is achieved through all 5 elements of our holistic learning program: academics, activities, outdoor education, personal and social education, and service. We explicitly plan for concept-based learning by asking conceptual questions and teaching through inquiry, exposing students to content that stretches and deepens their thinking, fostering dialogue and collaboration, asking students to generalize and apply their ideas to new contexts. Together, these experiences support the development of conceptual understanding in our students.
Thank you. So you can see from that video that it's really important that children can actually connect to prior learning, but also they can transfer their ideas and their learning to different contexts, both now and in the different contexts in school and beyond school, but actually further on into life as well. And we see play as a real strong vehicle for this in the infant school. So Brian talked before about having lots of different engagements set up. We sometimes call them provocations to provoke the children's thinking. And we really are trying to develop their mindset as a researcher and using their passions and their curiosity to actually develop that learning. So it might look very different for different children. So we'll be working towards the same conceptual understandings, but a child might take that in a different direction based on their passions. And that's how we try to set up our learning for them. So the learning is deep and meaningful for them and authentic for them as well. You know, young children quite often mimic what they see in real life. And, you know, the conceptual way of looking at that helps them to make sense of that as they're learning and enjoying their learning so much. So I could give you an example of that. In our school, we're really fortunate to have some chickens, some beautiful chickens on the East Campus. And grade 5, the grade 5 are responsible for looking after the chickens, but all the grades go and visit the chickens. So some infant children went to visit the chickens and were really interested in what do chickens eat? So they took that back to their class. They put on that researcher mindset, and they set about researching what do chickens eat. And then they made posters to educate other children about what chickens eat. And so that was a huge project of work. Some went on to make houses for chickens, even though our chickens have a very nice house. And some just use that learning to explain to their parents what chickens eat and explain to other children in different grades. Another example would be some K1 children. As part of our outdoor learning, we have very dedicated spaces on the campuses to do outdoor learning with our youngest children. And some of our K1s were appalled at how they found litter in those places. And so they went back to class, they developed posters, and they talked about what they were going to do, and they developed posters and presentations, and they went and presented to other classes. So this is our K1, our youngest children, presenting to our other primary classes who are all much older than them. So that's putting it really into action. Next slide, please. Now, you may have heard this phrase before, but it's a well-known phrase that we consider the environment to be a third teacher. And that really, there's a lovely photograph here of an environment, but it's a critical component of our learning. And the way that the environment's set up has a huge impact on the children's learning. So, for example, we set it up very intentionally with those engagements or provocations. And we also make sure it's flexible. And it all will always represent student voice. So the children have huge responsibility in the environment. They're able to make changes and build on their prior learning and also use their passions because they want to go off in a different way. So the environment plays a huge role in that for us. So if you do come and visit us on campus, you will see, you hopefully visit the pods, you will see how they're set up. They're very flexible. You'll see the student voice everywhere and hopefully see those creative opportunities that we do provide for our students. Hoping that we can always provide agency for the students to feel responsible and part of that learning. Next slide, please. Now, on the circle, the diagram that Brian showed earlier, you will have seen one of the elements is personal and social education. And this really underpins everything we do. So we have, we call it PSE, and we have a PSE, a set curriculum for PSE, but PSE it intersperses in every aspect of life. So there are formal lessons where we teach children, for example, in the infants, we teach about safe behaviours, we teach about self-regulation, we have a restorative approach to solving conflict, etc. But it's in every interaction that the children will be involved in. We also have more formal things like morning meetings, and this is where children can raise issues that they're concerned about and they can then work together cooperatively to problem solve and to find solutions to those problems. It's also teaching them about themselves, about regulating themselves, how to deal with their own emotions, and how they relate to other children and other adults and those relationships. It also teaches them about metacognition, about thinking and thinking about their learning, goal setting, how they're going to go about their learning, etc. So you can see it's a huge part of everything we do throughout every day in school life. Next slide, please. A part of that PSE is also safeguarding, and safeguarding is a huge part of our program as well. The children will be able to talk to you about trusted adults, so children, adults they feel safe and going to speak to. We also give the children the language they can articulate any concerns they have or questions they have. And we work very closely with homeschool partnership for that. So that's a very important part of our learning programme as well. And we have a great department, a counselling department and social and emotional learning specialists and learning support. And they all work together in classes with individuals, with groups and with home as well, as and when needed. And all of this is helping the children to develop their authentic self, so they can hopefully enact our mission and our values, as you can see here on the screen. And we try our hardest, because it's quite a lofty aim, we try our hardest to do that by developing the Uwcsea profile, which are the skills and qualities that you see there. And that underpins, again, everything we're doing on a daily basis. Next slide, please. Now, many of us as educators, and I'm sure for yourself as parents as well, because we're parents, when we choose a school, we choose with two hats on. We choose as an educator, but we choose as a parent for our own children. And our service learning programme, sustainability programme, is actually a big pull why people come to our school. And our service programme, our children experience right from K1, where they experience, service starts with me, and then they begin to actually see their place in those bigger circles. And we have three elements to our service programme at Uwcsea. So we have what we call college service, local service, and global service. So some examples would be local service would be, college service would be composting. So different grades are involved in composting or paper recycling or some of those things. Local would be our engagement with different service partners. So in the infants at East, Happy Lodge, which is a home for elderly residents, our children will go and visit them and play games, etc. So that's a huge part of their service learning. And then a global one, an example would be Kuma, Cambodia, which is a school in Cambodia that we work really closely with. And actually, our children get to visit that with a parent later in the year as well. And so it really has an impact with them. So I've heard so many stories where children have asked friends not to buy birthday gifts for them when it's their birthday. They'd rather they made a donation and they can send that money to Kuma, Cambodia, for example. I know during COVID, we had some grade 4 children making masks and sewing and making masks and selling them to raise money, and again to send it to Kuma, Cambodia, because that still held such a really special place in their heart. So the service component is a really, really key part of our learning programme, and is quite unique as well to Uwcsea. And next slide, please. Over to you, Brian, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Pauline. So I've got two more of our elements just to describe to you quite quickly, and then we'll close it out, and we'll get to the Q&A. So just a reminder that if you do have questions, to use the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. So outdoor education, again, like I've said at the beginning, we always have an eye on where they're going in their learning and what they're expected to do further on in the school. Excuse me. There are three kind of main aspects in our thinking about outdoor education. which is really kind of like adventure activities, and expeditions is one kind of aspect. Mainly it's about engaging with nature and the outdoors. And the third aspect is we really want them to develop love. If you know, honestly, if we have achieved making them love any subject that we do, then we think we've done our jobs. So if I just show you the next slide, this is an example very much of how we're interweaving all of our elements, you know, including academics, into one thing. So in this photograph, the children are actually looking at tadpoles. This is an area in our campus. And of course, you can learn about tadpoles and the life cycle of the frog from a textbook or even from videos. There's lots on YouTube on it, but nothing is better than doing it when you're actually looking at live tadpoles. So we very much talk about learning. We're learning about nature and about life cycles and about the environment, but we're doing that from the environment directly. And often our main aim is that they're learning for the environment. That's really what we're trying to get across to them. So we have little nooks and crannies like this. This is actually the Dover campus, but East Campus has little areas like this as well. Singapore is a city state. It's hard to find nature in your own school, but there you go. But this is just so engaging for the children, and they are alive over this kind of thing and telling everyone about it. And again, like Pauline mentioned, if they find litter or anything around them, they're horrified and they want to tell everyone all about it. Those children will have gone home that day and told their parents, we didn't learn, no, we don't do science at school. We don't do maths at school. Today we were looking at tadpoles. But of course they're learning heaps, and they will have gone back, they'll have drawn diagrams, writing all about it. So again, we're designing these kinds of engagements. Sometimes we're reacting to it, but mostly it is planned in, and it's actually very, very difficult planning. Sometimes we wish we had a textbook for things, but it's very difficult with all these different nationalities and systems, and we wouldn't want to anyway. So, and then the next slide, please, Malika, because one of, a few people, and in that video, and Pauline has mentioned it a few times, the idea of transfer and kind of learning for transfer. So one of the things that our founder Kurt Hahn many years ago firmly believed, and he was the same guy that founded Outward Bound and the Duke of Edinburgh Award and all these kinds of things. So the learning from nature was a big agenda for him, and it still is to this day for United World Colleges around the world. The idea that children should be exposed to lots and lots and lots of activities and experiences, and pushed in the back sometimes, encouraged and coaxed to do things that they might never have done. And they learn new things that they love, and they also learn things that they don't like at all. And that's also valuable learning. And the idea is that as they get older, they get rid of some of the breadth, because there's a huge breadth of activities available to them. These activities start after school. In infants, we introduce it slowly, so that they're not overburdening themselves. These things happen between 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock, the activities program. But the major thing about transfer in this particular instance is that self-esteem and self-confidence transfers in and between subjects. I've seen, I was teaching a maths class a few years ago where there was a little boy who expected to fail. As soon as maths happened, he hated it. And he thought every maths problem was personally designed to catch him out. When he knew the answer, he didn't trust himself, because it couldn't be that, he had this, it was mostly attitudinal, his thing about mathematics. And on one given morning when they were doing low ropes, he was the only child who managed to do this one particular challenge. He came in to do mathematics then after lunch, and he was 1 foot taller, and he sat down and he had a completely different attitude to mathematics. And it was quite amazing to watch. And he said, I'll give it a go, because he thought he was superhuman, because this self-esteem had transferred from doing low ropes in the outer ed program. But it is an amazing, amazing thing. This is why we find that we really do value all of these different interwoven elements, because it's very hard to distinguish between and among them, because we weave them all into each other. So that is kind of at the end, that's our PSC activities, outdoor ed, service, and academics. There are 5 major elements. I think I'm handing over to you now again, Pauline, to close this out, and then we'll move to Q&A.
Thanks, Brian. So there you see it. We've come full circle. There are the 5 elements of our learning programme. And Brian mentioned earlier that each of them are equally important, though they don't get the same amount of time, obviously. But what's really key for us is we can't do this alone. So next slide, please. We have the most amazing parent body. We have an amazing group of teachers and teaching assistants, and we have the best students in the world. But it's all possible because of the support from this incredible partnership that we have with parents. And our parents are there to help in so many different ways. And the commitment from parents is totally dependent on them, how much they can or can't, how much they want to or can't. But you could be fully involved, or you could be involved from a distance remotely, and that's entirely up to you. But there are a whole range of activities actually for parents as well, service opportunities for parents as well. We have language and nationality reps. So if you want to actually reach out to a parent who speaks the same language as you to ask questions, and that's all set up. But they play such a huge role in our community. And if you choose UWC, you'll be welcomed into that community with open arms. Next slide, please. And our notion of community is very, very much one of working in collaboration and working in partnership. And we see we quite often refer to our students as, they're not my students, they're not your students, they're our students. And the phrase, it takes a village, or it takes an orchestra to play a symphony. We truly believe that. We really want to work completely together in that collective effort. So it just remains to say thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you for considering UWC SEA as a place for your child's learning journey. We are very proud of the work we do here. We have the most wonderful students. A day doesn't go by where we don't laugh together and learn together and from our students. They're amazing, amazing characters, and we'd love to have you and your family come and join us as well. So I think I'm going to hand back over now to Malika, where we will go to our Q&A, or is it maybe Lucy?
Hello. You can pass over to me. Thank you, Pauline. Hello, everybody.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much. I'm assuming that everybody can hear me. My name is Lucy. I'm the Head of Marketing and Communications here at UWC, and I'm also a parent here. I was actually a parent here before I was an employee. So I was in your shoes at one point, trying to make a decision about which school to send my children to. So we've had plenty of fantastic questions come in. Thank you so much. I have tried to group them as much as possible so that we can answer multiple questions on the similar topic. The first one that I'm going to start with is actually around the languages program. And I've had quite a few questions around the French program, or the French language program in particular, and we've had some questions around Mandarin as well. So I might hand over to you, Tracy, if that's okay, to introduce yourself first, and then you can kick it off with a question around the home languages program and the languages that we offer in infant school. Thank you.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. So my name is Tracy Yockman, and as Pauline and Brian mentioned earlier, I'm one of the primary school vice principals at East Campus, and I'm responsible for the infant school. So I know Vicky and I both think we have the best jobs in school, and we get a chance to collaborate and work together across from Dover and East quite a bit as well. So this is my 7th year here in this role. I have, when I thought about it today, been in education now for over 30 years, and over 20 of those have been in international education. I have 2 high school children myself, and although I've worked in different parts of the school in different times in my career, I have to say I always end up back in the early years, because I think it's one of the most exciting and enjoyable places to work. There's not a day goes by that a younger person doesn't put a smile on my face for one reason or another. So welcome, and I'll get Vicky to introduce herself, and then I'll tackle the languages question, Lucy.
Hi, everybody. I'm Vicky. I am Dover's Tracy, or Dover's Vice Principal in the infant school. Similar to Tracy, I am an early years teacher through and through. I've been in this role since 2020, but still get a lot of time in classrooms. Tracy and I are hard to pin down. We're usually in classrooms with children. I have 2 children that are coming through the school. They've passed through infant school and now are in the junior school. I think as a parent here as well, I get a really unique perspective of what it's like on both sides, and listen to my children's stories. And I think the one thing that shines through continually is the connection and relationship they have with their teachers and the adults around them, as well as the friends that they're making. They feel very connected and part of the community despite the size of it. They feel very much part of our program. So hopefully we can answer your questions today together. We spend a lot of time together and have very similar approaches. So hopefully between us, we'll have all the answers you need.
Right. So I'm going to start with the languages questions. So this is probably one where we have some slight differences between the 2 campuses. So all children in our infant school from K1 through to grade 5, so in the junior school as well, learn a foreign language within the school. So in the infant school, they would have 4 lots of 40-minute sessions per week where they go to their foreign language class. So at East, we have the option from K1 to choose Mandarin, French or Spanish if the numbers allow. So some years we will have enough to have all 3 languages running, and others we won't. So there is that option to begin with. And then Vicky can talk a little bit about the differences at Dover in a moment. And then we also have a home languages program that runs after school as well as one of the activities. And students who speak that language at home, or it's a heritage language, can sign up for those classes as well. And these run in multiple different languages. And depending again on the need or the demand as to what languages actually are available with that one as well. Vicky, do you want to just talk a little bit about what that looks like at Dover?
Yeah, very similar model, 4 30-minute classes a week for foreign language learning. But at Dover, K1 and K2 all learn Mandarin. And then in grade 1, an option is open for beginner Spanish. And then in grade 2, beginner French. So those options come later on. But again, we run the same HLP program. And now there's so many languages, we're running out of classrooms to hold the languages in. It's a very well attended and popular after school activity.
Yeah, for sure.
Terrific, thank you. That's actually quite a good segue, and I'm going to jump around here, Tracy and Vicky. I hope you don't mind, but there were quite a number of questions around the activities, and so if we distill it down to a couple of themes, it's really around how many options are there and do they cost extra?
Yeah, and I'd love to say it's a straightforward answer. It's not. We have a progressive activities program. So after many years of doing this, we kind of have worked out the optimum number of activities. So we kind of phase them up and build them up. So through infant school, the activities every season, we allow children to join a certain amount, and that gets bigger and bigger as they go through the infant school. There are so many activities on offer. Some are free. They're often provided by our school staff, and then some are paid for. Those are usually outside providers that come in to offer them. So between the hours of 2 and 3, if you're on campus, there will be kids hip hopping, there will be tennis, there will be children finding bugs in the garden, a whole range of activities. But what we've learned is we tired those children out. They start at 7:30 and they're tired at 2 o'clock. So we have a bit of a relationships with the activities team where we kind of phase those activities in. And also our children kind of stay and do free play with their families sometimes after school, so that there are options available, and we just phase that is across the infant school.
Terrific. Thank you so much. So we're going to talk a little bit now about the meet and play sessions. We had a number of questions around meet and play, and I will direct some to you, Tracy and Vicky, and then I will also ask Malika if you don't mind jumping in for a couple of these questions as well. So the first one is I'll start with you, Vicky, since you're on my screen. What exactly is a meet and play session? And can you also tell us what happens if a child can't make it due to illness or otherwise?
Yeah. And look, it's super easy for me to sit here. I'm a mum as well. I know that that parents worry about this, and it's really easy for me to say this, but please don't worry about this. It's meant to be a nice experience for you and your child. In fact, most of the children don't want to leave at the end. We're having to really force them out of the classrooms. They want to stay and play. And it is literally an opportunity for them to come in and play. And I know I've seen questions about, do you have set criteria and what are you looking for? We're actually just hoping to meet your child and engage with them and just ensure that our setting is something that they are able to manage. Some of them come from very small preschools. That isn't an indicator that they will find this challenging, but we do want to allow them to have time in our environment. Do we get tears? Absolutely. Can some children not stay? Absolutely. We're early childhood educators. We've seen it all. And if a child is upset, we sometimes find other ways to connect with them. Sometimes we ask them to come back when they're a little bit older. So we're very flexible. Some children come to those sessions and don't communicate with us at all. That's okay as well. We're looking for a holistic experience. Both Tracy and I connect about meet and play sessions. So it actually doesn't matter where you do your meet and play session. We're always looking for the same things and engaging with the children in the same way. If your child is unwell, I know our admissions department will try their very best to find another time to bring them, but it's not going to be a mark against your application. And I think the other thing to note is that meet and play is one part of an application process. It's not the only part, it's just one of the elements.
Terrific. Thank you, Vicky. Did you want to add anything, Tracy, before I move over to Malika with a few more questions?
No, that's exactly what it is. It's the same here as on Dover. Vicky and I talk about it a lot and make sure that we're on the same page with all of that. And I know some parents get quite, like Vicky said, quite anxious about their child being upset, something like that. But honestly, it's a great sign. If your child has trouble separating, it means you're doing something right. They don't want to leave you. That's nothing wrong with that. And we certainly would not be putting a red mark next to them by any means. So no, please don't stress about it. It's actually, we love it. It's my favorite time of the week, getting to meet all of these children. So it's lovely.
Wonderful, thank you. Still on the topic of meet and play, and Malika, if I could direct this question to you, please. This is more around and Vicky heralded it with, her question around criteria. So a couple of parents have asked, who needs to attend these sessions? Does grade 1 still need to attend a meet and play session? And at what point do you sort of decide in the application period, at what point do you decide which children will come in for the meet and play session? Is it first, based on the application time, or how does the process work?
Sure, happy to address that. To begin with, I want to say that the meet and play sessions are for all K1 and K2 applicants who are based in Singapore. So all of them are invited to participate in one meet and play session, and that session is held on whichever campus they've applied to. And in the case of dual campus applicants, we invite the applicants to one or the other campus, and the same meet and play observation session is, the child doesn't need to go twice to 2 different sessions, one on each campus, because as Tracy and Vicky just mentioned, they share their notes and their observations about the children who come in for these sessions. So for all K1 and K2 applicants based in Singapore, we will invite them in for a meet and play. Now for grade 1, not all applicants are invited in for a meet and play. We review the applications, and typically we might invite students who would be missing part of an academic year if they're joining us in grade 1, just to see that they have the kind of skill levels, the literacy development is at about the right stage to be able to transition well into grade 1. So in the case of grade 1, we will decide, but it's not something that's part of every child's review and assessment process to come in for a grade 1. And then I think the other part of the question was, when do we hold these sessions? Basically, these have to run alongside when people apply. So typically the invitations will go out for a meet and play session about 2 to 4 weeks after an application comes in and we've had a chance to review the application, make sure that all the documents are in, and that's when we would invite a child in. We ask for one parent to accompany the child to come to the campus that they're invited to, and it's only the children who are actually in the classroom spaces for the actual session, which is about 30 to 45 minutes. We ask parents to allow about an hour or an hour, slightly over an hour for the entire visit to campus, just so that they have time to get to campus successfully, have some time to settle their child, and maybe, help, particularly for children who don't want to separate that easily, and then have time to pick them up at the end of the meet and play.
Wonderful. Thank you, Malika. Terrific. Whilst I have you, a question has come in around the timeline of application. So at what point after applying will I then, what's the rough timeline of when I will know whether or not my application has been successful?
Sure. So I'll just do a little shout out at this point to our own Open Day webinar about admissions, which took place yesterday. So for families who didn't have a chance to attend that, the recording of that will be placed on the admissions website very soon, I think later today. And we would strongly encourage you to watch that recording, because we really talk in detail about the admissions process, including the timeline. But for now, I'll just say that basically we've got 2 application deadlines, and each of those is in order to be considered for the 2 main offer rounds that we have. So our first application deadline is early November. I think it's November 4th, for our first offer round, which is in January. And then our second application deadline is February 3rd. And that's for our second offer round, which happens in March. So provided families apply by those deadlines, their children can be considered for those respective offer rounds. And also, if somebody has applied in time for our first offer round, and if we're not able to offer them a place in that January offer round, we continue to consider the child's application for an offer in our second offer round. So hopefully that's answered the question, but you can see more detailed information on our timeline page, and certainly on that webinar recording from yesterday.
Terrific. Thank you, Malika. One final question for you. I'm powering through the admissions questions here, but this is a good question. So if my child joins the school in infant and works through, do they have to reapply for middle school and high school once they're in the college?
Oh, no, they do not. So once your child's at the college, regardless of which grade they enter, they join us. They just carry on for as long as you choose to have them at the college. Obviously, provided that they continue to be good UWC citizens, and demonstrate the values that we want our students to align themselves around. But no, students do not have to reapply as they're moving through the school, either from primary into middle or from middle into high school.
Terrific. Thank you, Malika. Okay, Tracy, a very good question for infant parents is, do infant students have to do homework?
Oh, very good question. So what we want infant students to focus on at home is, one, enjoying time playing, but that's something that we emphasize a lot. But really the only thing that we would be asking to do at home would be reading. So reading, so important. There may be occasions where there might be some little practice things that children are doing, but generally it is not, there's no written homework as such. It's about developing their oral language and their reading skills. So reading with them, reading to them, and then of course having them read to you when they are at a place where they're able to do that and feeling confident and comfortable.
Terrific, thank you. This is a good question, which relates a little bit to how the homework as well, and devices and what we ask our students to do and engage with. So Vicky, I might direct this one to you if that's okay. Tell us a little bit about the devices policy and the use of technology.
Yeah, great question. I think that we do have devices, like all the children in infant school have an iPad, but when I say they have it, they don't have it on their person. We have enough for a full class. And I think the way we try to view technology is it should be used to enhance learning. It shouldn't be used as an entertainment device. It should be something that adds to the program. So we don't have, parents will often say, well, how much time will it be? It varies depending on what you're doing. For example, I teach maths and I use it very specifically to record maths learning and for them to do specific tasks. But I will only choose to use the device if it's a better option than using materials in the classroom. And actually what I find with the younger children is our program's so exciting. They don't ask to use the iPads. They don't want to be sat on a device. They want to be engaging and using the materials. They want to be in the sand trays. They want to be painting. They want to be doing maths with manipulatives. So we do have technology, but it's a thoughtful use of technology. I'm sure, Tracy, you would say the same for each as well.
Absolutely. And we have a digital information literacy curriculum. So those bigger concepts are embedded into units throughout the year. And a big part of that is also how to use technology responsibly. So that's a taught part of our taught curriculum. And in this day and age, something that's so important for our students from a very young age to start to develop, because they're exposed to it. So trying to learn how to use it responsibly, we believe is very important.
Terrific, thank you. Question to both Vicky and Tracy, so jump in as you see fit. We heard from Brian and Pauline around the concept-based teaching and learning and saw that terrific video explaining it. Could you just tell us in practical and maybe give us an example from each, how English and numeracy are taught with a concept-based approach? What does that actually look like? And are there learning goals?
Tracy, you want to start?
Okay.
You were nodding.
We do, again, our English and our mathematics curriculum, we have overarching concepts. And one of the key things, I saw a question at some point that was on the chat around why did we develop our own curriculum and not MYP, PYP? And one of the reasons for that was that alignment K-12. So we have these overarching conceptual understandings that really scaffold, spiral back and develop over the years. When it comes to English and mathematics, we have some of those understandings which have a whole bunch of knowledge and skills underneath them that students need to develop in order to get that understanding. So that's not going to happen without explicit teaching of certain pieces of knowledge or certain skills. What happens within English and mathematics is they are probably two of the areas where we have a number of what we would call standalone units that are specifically just mathematics or just English, as well as some that would be embedded into what we would call interdisciplinary units. So you might have, for instance, an example of a unit where I'm just thinking in like a K1 class where oral language there might be some conceptual understandings from oral language that are explicitly taught into, that they're being developed within the same unit where they are learning to understand some of the science concepts around living and non-living things. So they might be working in together and then again, some of the reading for the research that they're doing and some of the writing as they make labels and signs and do that. So at times they're embedded together, but some of that teaching of the knowledge and skills needs to be explicit and standalone in those two areas in particular.
Yeah, and I can just I'll give a kind of a practical maths example.
Yeah.
So the conceptual understanding is the same whether you're in K1, whether you're in grade 12. So for example, the conceptual understanding may be something about understanding the inverse relationship between addition and subtraction, helps people to solve equations. So you can imagine what that looks like for a grade 12. But if I look at a grade 1 student, what they're trying to figure out is how addition and subtraction are connected. So what I would do as a teacher is provide opportunities for them to start to figure that out. That can be through games, it can be through practical investigations, and really we're trying to teach children to be mathematicians and understand more than 3 + 2 = 5. Like, well, how else can you make 5? What else can you do with those two parts? What if the 2 disappeared? What would you have then? What's the fact family? So I guess I always think the conceptual understanding is the big overarching idea, and then we have specific benchmarks. So for that concept of inverse, for grade 1 students, we want them to be able to look at a simple equation and work out what the missing addend is in that equation. And there's some skills teaching. Children have to know that addition is combining two groups together to make a total. So there is still skills teaching, and I think sometimes that is misunderstood about conceptual understanding, that we still actually have times where we directly teach children how to do things.
Great. Thank you, Vicky. Whilst we're on maths, Tracy, maybe you'd like to answer this. What's the ratio of child to teacher in infant school?
I thought you were going to ask me some math problem that I wouldn't be able to answer. I can answer. Okay. So we have in K1 and K2, and I'm going to say approximate because we have a number of adults in our spaces, and we do refer to the teachers and the teaching assistants as the adults who work with the children. And we would have approximately 3 adults to 22 students in a K1, K2 class, and 2 adults with 24 students in grade 1. Now, I say approximately because we will sometimes have people working on particular projects depending on what's happening, and the ratio might change for that block of time, and then it might be more for sometimes and less for others. We also have learning support teachers and teaching assistants, and we have English as additional language support that comes into certain spaces, again, depending on needs. So when we have support people come in, they're usually not just working with one child, they're usually working with groups within a class. We don't want children feeling like they're being pulled out for this and that. So there often are more adults in a space at any given time, again, depending on the needs and responding to that within different classes.
Terrific, thank you. Vicky, we have a question around the safety measures in the school. So what are the safety measures in the school, and how often and how do teachers and parents connect to discuss learning?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take the safety part first. Like, we are, as a school, committed to child protection and safeguarding, and actually all the safety kind of falls under that umbrella. So there's general safety and helping children to understand what risk is, and we talk about safe risk. It's a big part of growing up and learning, but we are very vigilant around supervision. We have many adults, as Tracy said, in our spaces, and they're part of the supervision. But we also actively teach into safe behaviours. We actively teach into how to be self-managers. That's all very much part of our early childhood curriculum, and helping the children to take that responsibility, as well as the adults around. Our infant children are always with adults. They don't really get any time where they don't even move around campus on their own. They've always got adults with them. And that's the same on the buses, in the activities department, and we remain connected to them. If there is anything that's concerning us about safety, we really encourage a strong relationship with home, and parents are continually talking to class teachers. So it's a very open communication. So I think that we have high expectations around safety, but we also like the children to start to learn the responsibility about their own body and how to keep themselves safe.
Thank you. Okay, Tracy, a question for you, which is around the project-based and presentation approach to our curriculum. So a parent has asked, and I'll just read the question for the other attendees. I heard that the main difference from other schools is that Uwcsea SEA is more project-based and presentation-based. How about children who are more shy and humble? How do you find them coping with this kind of teaching method?
Okay, so we would talk a lot about a play-based environment, and that may involve students and groups of students working on different projects, but it can be individual and it can be group-based. I'd say one of the things that infant school teachers do extremely well is observe, listen, and document. And so one of the things that we do is we do not expect by any means a student to be standing up and sharing verbally. We often have a number of children whose English is not their first language, and it's quite a challenge for them to actually be able to verbalize what they're learning and what they're doing. So having opportunities and finding ways to provide engagements for students that allow them to show their thinking in a multiple different ways. So that's something that we spend a lot of time with our staff working on. And when teachers are looking at assessment for different subject areas, we're looking at assessment criteria. What would we observe? What could we see? What could we hear that would show understanding, or would show a particular skill development, or show an understanding of the knowledge that we've been working on? So while at times there will be opportunities for students to present, and that may change as they get older and go through the school, there'll be maybe more of that, but certainly for us, we spend a lot of time looking at how we can assess without it necessarily being in any kind of verbal way.
Yeah, and I would just add that for us, oral communication is one way of expressing communication. There's many other ways children communicate, and a mum of 2 very shy children, I think the other thing to note is as they go through our program, their confidence in doing those things, the more they see peers, the more they're with teachers who encourage, we see that grow as they build their collaboration and presentation skills, and they're given opportunities, but they're always opportunities rather than things that the children have to do. So we have many children, and I always say to parents, do not underestimate the quiet observer in the corner, because actually they're also engaging and learning in different ways.
Absolutely.
I can add to that as a parent that the PSE aspect of the learning program is also phenomenal for giving children, speaking as, you know, with my parent hat on, giving my children the confidence to be able to stand up and take risks in that way. And also the arts festivals, they just love it. So that's my parent contribution for you. Okay, this next question I think is fantastic, and I'm just going to throw it open to anybody who wants to jump in and answer this, but it's really about the UWC SEA culture and what sets UWC SEA apart. All the parents on this webinar here today are making a decision around infant schools. And the question is, you know, given that we value diversity at UWC SEA, does the college, the campus, the classroom have a shared culture and atmosphere? And what are these shared values?
What a great question. And it's one that we probably grapple with a lot. Like what defines a school, what creates that community, what creates that culture. And we know here in Singapore, we're very fortunate. There's many schools here. So how do you pick the one that's right for you and your family? And I think what would my sales pitch be? Look, I think I've worked in many schools, and I think the biggest thing here is that people who come here, whether they work here, whether they send their children here, really believe in the mission and really try to live it. Families pick this school because something about this touches them more than just results. It tends to touch the heart, and we find that in the communities. And then each class develops its own unique culture, right? They get to learn it about each other. They develop a relationship with themselves, with others, with their adults. And I think a lot of schools ban the word around holistic, but this was the first school that I worked at where I was like, oh, they really do this here. They really care about PSE. They really care about activities. They really do want children to do service, and they want them to do it because they believe in it. And many of our families feel the same way. And so our families get involved. They want to give back. They want to be part of the community. And that happens despite the size of the school. So I would say the holistic part for me is very unique. And just because there is such a diverse community, it makes it really, really special, because I don't think you ever get the mix of cultures coming together like you do in each classroom.
Terrific.
I would say that piece about the mission is, I know people say it, but you don't really understand it until you're here. It's in that way that it does sort of, it's embedded in everything. It is really a filter for decisions that we make. I was actually here when this East Campus infant school first opened in 2010 for 6 years, and I left, went to another international school and ended up coming back. And when I came back, I never thought I'd come back anywhere. I was like, no, I'm going somewhere else. But one of the things that really stood out to me, and when I was asked why would you want to come back? And I had to think for myself why that was. And it was just, I felt that something was missing and I couldn't really work out what it was. And when I came back and I walked on campus, I was like, that's it. The mission does live through everything that we do. And I just think that's really special and really important. And like Vicky said, those classroom communities are quite diverse and they establish that themselves and they really value that diversity. So it's something that teachers and the adults in the spaces really work at, building that family culture and that around the class community. And I think that's really, really quite special.
Terrific. Thank you so much. It was such a great question. Final question, because we are at time now, but I think that this is a good question and it just talks to the transferable skills and the transferability of the curriculum. And a parent has asked, outside of the UWC network, do you have partnerships with other international schools in case a family relocates to regions that don't have a UWC SEA campus? So I think this is a great question around our curriculum. If anybody wants to jump in and quickly answer that one.
I'm happy to just.
Oh, sorry, you probably know better.
Sorry, Tracy.
No, you go.
Please feel free to add on.
I will add on.
I think, you know, we've all been now at the college for quite a while, and I think one of the things that our concept-based teaching learning program really enables is for that transferability of the learning to a different context and a different school environment. And we have families join us at different points in time in different grades, and families leave us at different stages of their children's education. And really from having connected with students who've done that, who've had to leave for various reasons, most commonly the family relocating somewhere else, we have learned that really is true in practice, that they are able to transition to other learning environments very successfully. We've also had some of our students leave and then return after a period of time. And it works well in both directions, actually. So I just wanted to mention that, but Tracy and Vicky, please feel free to add on. Also, just to say, we don't have formal partnerships with other schools, but we've certainly had students go pretty much all over the world from when they leave us.
Great.
And I think I would just add that because we do have the opportunity to write our own curriculum, that curriculum is benchmarked across the kind of world criteria. It's not something we kind of pull out. We've got a whole team that research curriculum, so that we're always making sure that we are working at the same level as other schools. And so we have many children that transfer, and Malika's right. All the children who are leaving say to me, you know, I'm coming back, right? they're thinking that way. They want to come back to this community. And so we find that our children transition. Whenever I connect with families, they're always like, oh, they miss you, but the transition was smooth. So I think that's what I've kind of experienced in my time here.
Terrific.
I would say the same. And I think that inquiry-based nature of the program, and that we really do help to teach how to learn. Like we want children to know how to learn, not just what to learn. And that transfers to any environment as such a vital skill for students. I'll stop talking.
Wonderful. No, thank you. Many thanks, Tracy and Vicky and Malika, for fielding all the questions from our attendees today. I am going to hand back over now to Malika to close out this session. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
And thank you, Lucy, for moderating the Q&A so well. I also want to thank Tracy and Vicky, as well as Pauline and Brian, for a lot of great information that they shared with us and with you, our audience today. So before we go, one final request of those of you who are still on this webinar, we would love for you to give us a quick bit of feedback about today's session. So I'm just going to share the screen and request you to respond very quickly via this QR code. Oops. Via this QR code. Please give us some feedback on today's webinar. So I'll just leave that up for a while. And while you scan that and give us your feedback, I also want to just remind you that, of course, we've got on-campus open days coming up, and you're welcome to sign up for those. And if you plan on attending, we very much look forward to seeing you on campus soon. Thank you very much. And we hope you've enjoyed today's webinar. The recording will be placed on our website very soon. And please go ahead and give us your feedback. We really take that feedback on board when we plan each session. Thank you.